This woman claimed that she had lived 3,000 years ago during ancient Egypt. According to her, she was a priestess back then and had now been reincarnated. Reincarnation basically means a soul is reborn into a new life. Now, personally, I don't really believe in reincarnation cases like this, but when you look at the shocking events in this woman's life, it does make you wonder. Some of the discoveries she made in Egypt were things no one had known before. Archaeologists and historians studied her case for decades, trying to prove she was lying, but they couldn't fully disprove her claims. She had knowledge she shouldn't have had, and that's what makes this story so intriguing. Even if you don't believe in reincarnation, just hear the story once, and then ask yourself, how did she know all this? Her name was Dorothy Eady. She was born in 1904 in London into a middle-class family and was the only child of her parents. When she was just 3 years old, she fell down the stairs in her house and lost consciousness. Her parents called a doctor, who examined her and declared that she had died. But about an hour later, while her parents were distracted, Dorothy suddenly got up, walked into her room, and started playing as if nothing had happened. When her parents and the doctor saw her alive, they were completely shocked. Her parents even got angry at the doctor for declaring a living child dead. The doctor insisted that she really had been lifeless at the time. After this incident, Dorothy's way of speaking began to change. Her accent became different. Doctors and specialists said she might be experiencing something called foreign accent syndrome, which can happen after a serious head injury. On top of that, Dorothy started talking about a recurring dream. She described a place with huge pillars and a beautiful garden. She said she loved that garden and talked about its flowers and how she used to be there with her friends. She was only 4 years old and couldn't fully explain where this place was or how she knew about it, but she became obsessed with this garden that kept appearing in her dreams. Her parents started noticing that Dorothy would cry all the time, saying she wanted to go back to the place from her dreams. At some point, she even began calling it her real home. Her mother would try to comfort her, saying, "Dorothy, you are home." But Dorothy would insist, "No, this isn't my home. My home is in that garden near that building." To distract her, her parents took her to the British Museum, where there were large exhibits of ancient Egyptian artifacts. As soon as Dorothy walked in and saw the statues of pharaohs and images of pyramids, she ran toward them. She started touching the statues and even the feet of the Sphinx figures, shouting, "I've come back home. These are my people." She caused quite a scene in the museum and refused to leave. Her parents were embarrassed, trying to calm her down while people stared, wondering what was going on. Eventually, they managed to take her home. But from that moment on, Dorothy became completely obsessed with ancient Egypt. She realized that the place from her dreams was connected to it. By the time Dorothy was 6 years old and had learned to read and write in English, she started taking an interest in Egyptian hieroglyphics. She would say that she somehow knew what they were, but had forgotten how to read them. At age 7, she came across a textbook that had a picture of the Temple of Seti I in Abydos, Egypt. The moment she saw it, she said, "That's my home. That's where I'm from." She even pointed to a damaged part of the temple and said, "There used to be a garden here. Where did all the trees go? Why does it look like this now?" She didn't understand that thousands of years had passed. In the same textbook, there was an image of Pharaoh Seti I, after whom the temple was named. When Dorothy saw the well-preserved mummy, she got extremely excited and said, "I know this man. I know him very well." At the age of 10, a well-known Egyptologist named E.A. Wallace Budge heard about Dorothy. He offered to teach her how to read and write Egyptian hieroglyphics, and she picked it up very quickly. By the time she was 14, she was still having those garden dreams, but now she also started having disturbing ones. In these dreams, she was in some kind of underground chamber from her past life, where high priests were questioning her. When she refused to answer them, they punished her. At 27, Dorothy met an Egyptian man, and she fell in love with him. Honestly, it almost feels like, in her mind, you could even say that, in her mind, she might have been thinking that if she married this man, she'd finally get to live in Egypt permanently. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as they got married, they moved to Egypt, where she could get residency. The moment Dorothy arrived in Egypt, the first thing she did was kiss the ground and start crying, saying, "I'm finally home." She and her husband later had a son, and she named him Seti after the pharaoh Seti I. While living in Egypt, Dorothy claimed that a spirit used to visit her at night. She called this entity Horare, which she described as a falcon-like Egyptian deity. According to her, it was actually the spirit of Pharaoh Seti I. During her first year in Egypt, Dorothy would go into a kind of hypnotic state at night. She'd be asleep, suddenly wake up, and start writing rapidly in Egyptian hieroglyphics. Her husband would wake up in the middle of the night and see her in this state, but he couldn't communicate with her. Dorothy said that during those moments, Horare was speaking to her, and she was just writing everything down. According to what she wrote, Horare was telling her about her past life. In that life, she was a girl named Bentreshit, who lived around 3,000 years ago during the time of Pharaoh Seti I. She lived near the Temple of Seti, close to a garden, the same garden she had seen in her dreams. Over the course of a year, Dorothy wrote about 70 pages in hieroglyphics, describing her supposed past life. Before being born as Dorothy, she claimed she had been this Egyptian woman, Bentreshit. Her father was a soldier, and her mother sold fruit but died when Bentreshit was just 3 years old. Her father couldn't take care of her, so he placed her in a temple, where she grew up and eventually became a priestess. At the age of 12, she was given 2 choices: either leave the temple and live freely in the outside world, or stay and dedicate her life to the temple.
She chose to stay.
A few years later, she met Pharaoh Seti I, and they fell in love. She became pregnant, and when this was discovered, the high priests questioned her. When she refused to reveal the father's identity, they punished her, just like the scenes Dorothy used to see in her childhood nightmares. To protect Pharaoh Seti I's reputation, Bentreshit ultimately took her own life. Dorothy's husband eventually became exhausted from all of this, watching her wake up at night, go into trance-like states, and write in hieroglyphics. He couldn't handle it anymore and decided to divorce her. After that, Dorothy continued her life with her child. After that, Dorothy moved to another city, near the Giza pyramids. Since she had named her son Seti, people started calling her Omm Sety, which means Mother of Seti. Around this time, she began working for Egypt's Department of Antiquities and built a very successful career in Egyptology. For nearly 20 years, she studied the Temple of Seti I in incredible detail, not just the structure itself, but also the people who once lived there, because according to her, she had lived there too. In 1952, when Omm Sety was in her 50s, she finally got a job in Abydos. That meant she could work right at the Temple of Seti I, the same place she had been talking about since childhood. When she first stepped into the temple, she said it felt like she had come back home. She even set up her office inside one of the temple's rooms and spent most of her time there. Interestingly, she befriended a cobra that lived inside the temple and would feed it every day. Omm Sety made many contributions to Egyptology, but the things that really made her famous were the discoveries linked to her claims. As soon as she entered the temple, she pointed out where the ancient garden used to be the same garden she had seen in her dreams as a child. She told researchers, "Dig here, you'll find the garden." When they excavated the area, they actually found evidence of a garden. Not only that, she described exactly where different trees had been located, essentially mapping out the entire layout, and her details turned out to be accurate. Then she told them to dig on the north side of the temple, saying there was a hidden tunnel there. When they excavated that area, they discovered a secret passage, something no one had known about before. It seemed almost impossible that she could have known this without any prior information. She also directed researchers to search a specific area in the Valley of the Kings, claiming there was a forgotten tomb there. When they investigated, they did find a previously undiscovered tomb. There's really no clear explanation for how Omm Sety knew all of this about ancient Egyptian culture and locations. It's the kind of story that makes people wonder, was she really a reincarnation? Let me know what you think. Do you believe Omm Sety was truly reincarnated? And interestingly, the tomb discovered in the Valley of the Kings turned out to be that of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in human history. Most tombs had already been looted over time, but this one had remained hidden since ancient Egypt, almost completely untouched.